Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to cover the Galaxy Book 12 and Galaxy Book 2 comparison. Been trying to get this camera to work right. I'm using this LG G5 because of its ultra wide, but I guess it limits to 5 minutes. So yeah, I kind of almost recorded the first video and then lost it. So this is take number 2. All right, so I'm going to jump right in. These are both Verizon Galaxy books. I have Verizon. I've been using this one for a little over a year. This one almost 2 years. Yeah, I've had this one for almost 2 years. Year and a half maybe. This one I have had for a little over a month. Thought I should do this video because there's not a lot of coverage on these devices, and they're both really great devices. I think there's some things you should be aware of before buying this one, and some things you should be aware of if you're thinking about choosing this one instead. To start off with the specs, this is a Core i5 here. This one is a Snapdragon 850, 7th gen Core i5 with 9-hour battery life, 20-hour battery life here, always on also. 4 gigs of RAM on both, 128 gigs on both as well. I know there's variants, not going to go into that right now. So I have a MacBook, and so that's my main power machine on the go. So you do have a huge, I think it's like half the performance on here, half the benchmark score on the 850 instead of the i5. Which is pretty significant, in addition to, Intel being much better versed in kind of desktop work in general. Intel just does a better job overall with ports, displays, stuff like that. I'll get into a few things that I've found that are a little problematic out of the Snapdragon. I don't know if they're going to fix it in updates down the road, but yeah, I haven't seen any support kind of from Samsung around this device. They do have regular updates on both. I have seen regular updates on both from Samsung, which is good. So it's not completely abandoned. There is some internal software as well, just for handling like the mouse and how it syncs up with a Galaxy phone if you have it. In addition to a few small setting features that are available. The Galaxy, they both have I think they have the same resolution screens. Yeah, 2160 by 1440. Very good screens on both. And both HDR capable, I believe. Let's see. There's something else about the screen I think that they had mentioned. I think maybe higher brightness. But anyway, they're both beautiful screens. I love both of them. And I use a MacBook Pro every day, so they do a pretty good job of delivering colors and vibrancy and so on. So with the Galaxy Book 12, you have this huge cover that kind of goes all the way around and just wraps around the computer like that. And the stand is this cover being folded into different configurations. And so, it's nice, but I think this is a lot better with the kickstand. I don't think this is a great idea. It's extremely, it adds thickness, it adds weight, it adds clumsiness, and kind of the lay down size of the computer is so much bigger in comparison with this one. Because also this one folds up, as you can see right there. It's magnetic, so it folds up like that, which also reduces the amount of space taken up on a table. So on an airplane, this is usable, while this is like pretty much not usable at all. Let's see what else. You also have like one big thing is that with this one, first of all, when it's closed, you can't use the camera, and it's kind of annoying sometimes. Also, this mode right here, which is the kind of lay down mode, is not very stable. any kind of like little bit of a shake and it flaps back up and then it closes on itself. So yeah, you never really end up using that very much. It's not very effective. On the other hand, this guy right here can go all the way down. And I have a Surface Pro 5, and yeah, I mean, this kickstand is not very different from that. Performs just as well, it holds just as well, and it feels just as reliable and sturdy. Yeah, the device is absolutely stunning. I mean, this device right here is just absolutely, they're both honestly stunning devices, but this one is really well made. The color is also just amazing. The color is amazing. People stare at it all the time anywhere I go.
It's 12 p.m.
Oh. Okay. So yeah, both USB-C, both have USB-C. Now, as you could see, there is a little USB and a display icon right next to it, and that's because not both of these USB-C ports work. On the Galaxy Book2, only one of these can put out a display. The other one cannot, unfortunately. On the original Galaxy Book 12, both of these are fully functional USB-C 3.1 ports with display output. So that's something to keep in mind. Of course, Core i5 7th Gen, 9 hours of battery life, and then Snapdragon with 20 hours of battery life. So the bezels here, of course, are, it's all kind of curved, rounded. Everything's rounded all around, pretty much. Versus on the Galaxy Book 2, you have this squarish design for majority of the area, but then you have this little curve right here. That's the only curve, which is actually extremely sleek, very, very sleek. I like it very, very much. I think they did a really good job on it. And the edges are flat, right, which is absolutely beautiful. It looks really good. It feels good in the hand. It looks good. Just in general, everything feels great about this computer. One sec, let me just wipe off these fingerprints. Nobody wants to see fingerprints. Okay. And so this guy does not have any kind of Windows Hello authentication. This one does have the fingerprint. So with one touch of the fingerprint, it'll turn on right away and unlock, which is really good. I mean, I haven't seen any Windows machines that can do that, and so I'm pretty happy with that. It's as reliable as a very high-end mobile phone. There's not very many that do that, where they turn on right when you touch it, but this one does that. So you don't need to click the button and then scan. You just touch once and it opens. If you put it on right. Yeah, but it'll turn on right away. It's extremely responsive, just as fast as an iPhone fingerprint scanner, or maybe a Note 5 fingerprint scanner. Now, they both have pens, of course. This one for the Galaxy Book 2 comes in a separate holder, which is a curious decision. Most people will tell you that it does not have a magnetic thing, but yes, it does. It does stick right there. So I was happy to see that. Not available on this guy. What you do have is the pen attached kind of like this over here to the back of the keyboard like that, which is all right. Not the best idea in my opinion. It just makes packing this machine more difficult if you're taking a lot of other things with you in a backpack or in a briefcase. It doesn't work well with other machines. It takes up more space than it should, and it has this thing which just like it's just, you can't lay it down like that. You put it up like it's flappy. It doesn't make a lot of sense to have that. But then again, you never lose it. With this one, you kind of run the risk of losing it or forgetting it somewhere or not bringing it with you. Now, for the weight, I think they're about the same weight. This one is the Galaxy Book 12 is a lot heavier. With this, without it, they're about the same weight. But yeah, this thing adds more weight with just that extra flap alone. Adds a lot more weight. Yeah, the keyboards are about the same, with this one being less noisy. Both are really good keyboards, honestly, very, very good keyboards. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm definitely very happy with the keyboards on both of these. There's no doubt that Samsung is doing a really good job here. Now, I do see that there's an NFC thing right here, but there isn't one right here, so I don't know. I think there probably is not an NFC scanner inside this keyboard. I still don't see a reason for NFC scanners on a computer, but some people may disagree with me on that. Okay, now moving on to performance. In terms of performance, the Core i5, of course, does a very, very good job. This guy right here, Core i5 does a very, very good job. And even though it's 4 gigs of RAM on both, especially on this one, I have not felt any kind of. I mean, I'm usually on 16 gigs of RAM on my MacBook, or 100 and something on my desktop, and I usually run a lot of things at the same time. So I do usually push everything that I use to the limit of its RAM, and yeah, I didn't feel as much of an issue with this one. This one slightly. I don't know if it's the processor not being able to handle kind of switching between apps and pulling them off the SSD. Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna run a quick SSD test. So if you'll hold on with me for just a moment. Okay, so yeah, I'm running this this SSD benchmark right now, and yeah, we're looking like there's definitely a drop in the SSD performance. Let's see, how about I do this? Yeah, so it definitely looks like there's a drop in the SSD performance. There may be, so looks like the write has dropped on the Samsung and the read has gone up. Sorry, on the Book 12. So with the new model, the write speed has dropped to 184 megabits per second and 640 for the read, with that's sequential. And then you have over here 455 with 354. So yeah, there's definitely a change in the SSD performance. Faster read, slower write. That may be the reason why I'm having issues with kind of running too many things on here at the same time. In addition to, of course, the issues with the processor itself not being fast enough, maybe to handle back and forth between RAM and SSD. So yeah, there's a general drop in the write over here. A little bit faster in the read, which is good. But yeah, I definitely felt the SSD difference, actually. I had a feeling there was something wrong with the SSD. The SSD on that one is really good. I don't know why I mean, it doesn't, it clocks 350, 500. That's not very much, but there's something about this machine right here. It just performs very, very well, much better than I would ever expect it to perform every time, always. This one, pretty darn good. Sometimes I forget that I'm using a Snapdragon, but I'll occasionally run into issues. It does look like, yeah, you have a slower read 4K 64, but a higher write 4K on here. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like they downgraded the SSD. May have slightly downgraded it, but it looks like, I mean, they just went for whatever spec was available or they felt was suitable. Maybe they went for power. Maybe this specific SSD is designed for better power consumption. Anyway, yeah, look at that. It's frozen now. It's interesting. Okay. Now, moving on to battery life. For battery life, I've had decent battery life here. In general, about 8 hours. I can pull 8 hours out of this, maybe 6 to 9 hours. This guy right here, the battery life is a little more sporadic. I think because it's optimized for specific tasks, most likely. However, I did take it on a trip to East Coast, and there and back, kind of, I tested out the battery, and I have this app that tracks the battery life and tells me kind of, how much I'm losing per hour or whatever. And yeah, and this thing right here was doing an amazing job. Uh, Majority of the stuff I did, I did some work, but majority of what I did was like just download Netflix onto the app in here, onto the built-in Netflix app, and then playback the downloads. I expected the downloading to take a lot of battery, but it did not, and the playback also did not. Um, the playback actually took very, very little. The playback took, I think it was like 2% per hour or something like that. It was like a really low number, even though the brightness was like, medium or like whatever. It wasn't like brought down. So that was very, very good. I'm very happy with that. And now if you start using other things, of course you will start to see the battery life not be as great. But in general, it charges extremely fast and it drains extremely slow. You can pretty much count on it lasting at least 3 days of okay use. A couple hours a day, at least 3 days, maybe even full work days, full productivity days, 3 days in a row. I could definitely see this guy lasting that long. This one maybe two, maybe even just one. So yeah, battery life is pretty good on both. They're both pretty close to what they claim. Unlike the Surface trash can, which will never deliver the claimed battery life that that Microsoft claims. The Surface trash can. All Surface trash cans. Now, next thing I was going to go over was ports. So I talked about the USB-C ports. There's one thing that I do want to go over with this here. For some reason, this guy right here, I've had a couple issues with the ports, and yeah, it looks like it might just be a limitation of the device itself. I was able to output 4K from here, so the 4K worked. However, my ultrawide up there, which is USB-C, will not work. It will not give me full 4K. It'll only give me 2560 by 1440, which is really disappointing, to say the least. And then I tried to run it as HDMI out with the adapter, the same adapter I used for the 4K screen, and it also did not work. It would only give me 1440 by 2160. Another issue is that for some reason, several adapters that I have tried will only work if it's plugged in. So I don't know what's going on there, but this thing will only output HDMI if it's plugged in, so that the adapters, the USB-C adapters, will only work when it's plugged in. Does not make sense. No rhyme or reason for it. I don't like that. I'm definitely not. I'm not excited about not being able to plug it into my USB-C monitor. I've docked this guy a couple times, no problem, but this guy is not able to do it. I did run two 1080p monitors out of it, worked no problem also. Just for some reason not the ultrawide. It's like an aspect ratio thing. Maybe with even the graphics card being just unwilling to do the ultrawide thing. I don't know what it is. The Snapdragon 850 is clearly behind on USB-C implementation, or I guess just general desktop or Windows, working with other things that are Windows or whatever it is. Yeah, there's a few things that are just like a little iffy here. This does say that it's 64-bit, but so far I have had no luck with running 64-bit programs. I am having to go for the 32-bit variants of certain programs that I use, and I don't know if it's an issue with this, but there's a few programs that I used that would not run properly, but those ones may be attributed to the company not putting enough focus on their 32-bit variant. I think that might be a thing. It might be this. It might be using the Snapdragon. You know, that might be an issue. But then again, I do have a virtual machine on my Mac, so I just kind of use that when my portable Windows machine can't run what I'm trying to run, because there's some programs that I do need Windows for. Now let's talk about yeah, let's do speakers. Let's do camera first, actually. Let's see, camera. Okay, so yeah, camera here is a lot better. Let's see if I can. I mean, it would be hard to really like say exactly which one is better. It depends on what you like. The Samsung looks more natural, while the this one looks more vibrant. So yeah, I mean, it's really a matter of preference, but they both look pretty good. Back cameras are also both pretty good. Yeah. The back cameras have autofocus, which is something that's missing in majority of Windows tablets. Yeah. Yeah, both the cameras look really good. Samsung I mean, they didn't do a good job. They just made the right decision by including a semi-decent camera on both of these, because yeah, I mean, I think Microsoft up until like the Surface, I've had every Surface except for the new 2019 one. I've had every single one up until the 2015 model, or 2017 model, sorry. Yeah, and Microsoft just never included a good Surface, a good camera in their Surface. It's just always been trash. Just always a very disappointing camera from Microsoft. Okay, so yeah, cameras are pretty good on both sides. And then speakers. So yeah, speakers are. It's hard to say, because after you go with Macs for a while, I just recently switched to Mac, and yeah, after you go with Mac for a while, you realize everybody else's speakers just suck completely. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Let's do here these two. Okay, so those are the two speakers. I'm gonna do the MacBook 12-inch just as reference for those of you that may actually be interested in your laptop speaker performance. If I can find the same video. Here we go. Okay. So that's the other thing about it, about this one specifically, more so than the other ones, is that, yeah, actually both of them are very directional with the audio, to where it comes out of the sides, very much out of the sides, so a majority of it is going that way. If you do happen to have your hand right here, it does make a pretty big difference. You guys heard the difference just now. I was doing it on the right hand side also earlier. So yeah, you could tell, like, this little machine right here completely smacks the heck out of majority of Windows laptops, all the way up to 15 inches, honestly. Just in terms of fidelity, I mean, everything really. Apple just really delivers a completely different listening experience with their speakers. My MacBook Pro, the 15-inch, it sounds like I have a subwoofer in there. It's amazing. I mean, it delivers table shaking bass. Anyway, the most important part, I think, for both of these, which is the reason why I have them, which is for my note taking. I'm finishing up chemical engineering, and yeah, having digital notes became very important when I started doing organic chemistry. Having digital notes with recordings, especially. And so I'm going to compare the writing real quick between the two, just to let you guys know. First of all, they're almost identical with the writing quality. However, okay. So they're almost identical. However, there's a few things that do change with the Book 12, with the Book 2, which involve I think it's the weight of the pen, or I think it's the surface. Yeah, I mean, so Samsung, I can never figure out what it was. I think it's just this pen has like loose moving parts. So if you tap it, it makes a noise. This one does not. I don't know if you guys could hear that noise that it makes. And so it makes it feel a little flimsy. I think it's this button right here that makes that kind of that loose feeling, that gives that loose feeling. And this thing is also pretty loose. So you have one button here as well, but no eraser, right? You have an eraser here, which is another thing that people like. I personally prefer erasing with the button, but in order to do that, you have to use, there's a setting from Samsung, and you either choose to have right click, or pretty much either right click, which translates into selection on OneNote, or you could choose to have it as eraser. And so, I mean, I chose to have it as eraser because I do have an eraser here. but there's something really special about having an eraser up here. It helped me improve my handwriting a lot because while you're writing, you can very quickly erase. See, it's off here, but you can very quickly erase what you're writing and improve what you just wrote pretty much. So if you feel like it was written, incorrectly, or you feel like you could write it better, so you could read it better later, you could very quickly erase. And there's a pretty big difference between reaching to the back of the pen and erasing with it versus doing it right there up front with the eraser. So yeah, like you're writing and erase is just right away, right? It's a pretty big difference. Now I'm gonna show you guys some writing. Bring the camera here and then bring that to size. And let's see. Okay. The pens do work on each other. Let's see, maximize. Pen rejection comes off by default on this one, so you probably want to turn it on. Palm rejection, I mean. Make sure the thickness is the same. Okay. So as much as I show you guys writing, it's just not the same as you trying it out for yourself, and not trying it out for yourself by walking into Best Buy and trying it for 5 minutes, but really spending some time getting used to writing on that machine. Yeah, it's not easy to determine right away what's better at writing, but I've had a lot of time to try out a lot of different things, and to this day there is not a single machine that can write as good as these. Nothing can deliver a better writing experience than these two Samsung machines. It's unbelievable how nice it is to write on these machines. I mean, like nothing comes close to feeling like just natural, The iPad